Hi, this is Jason Bagley, going to talk to you a little bit about Heidi Roizen. So here's Heidi Roizen. What is it about her networking and how does it grow? Well, to begin with, her networking started very small. It was a single person that we really are focused in when we talk about the CEO. Okay? So her relationships began very basic. And as she leaves there and goes to business school and she starts her business with her brother, she starts to understand the growth pattern and she stays in industry. So in the networking, when we talked about that, it's kind of an inbreeding almost to begin with. She's dealing with the press, people that she has to deal with, and different trade groups. But she starts to understand, hey, you know what, I need to grow this. I don't need it to be so inbred. So she starts getting on boards and starts dealing with people. And then she starts understanding, I need to create these parties and these get-togethers where I can get to know just intelligent people. So she broadens her horizons. She's no longer inbreeding her networking anymore. She starts expanding it. And as she expands it, of course, it expands itself. It grows upon itself. So through her relationships with the press and with these trade groups, she goes on to Apple, and obviously at Apple she begins to use the network. Now before then, she's a lot like Adam Rifkin, again we talk about, because she's just trying to get to know people. But at Apple she actually has to start using it. Then she understands, not only do I need to use it, but I need to use it properly. How are my relationships set up? How often am I using them? Are my relationships consistent? Are they based on more than just what I can get out of the situation? So here she is at Apple, she begins to use it. Then she goes to her mentoring and she starts seeing, hey listen, I don't want to use these too much. I want to make sure that it's a good fit, that it's a win-win for everybody. And that's more of a mix of the give and take and more otherish than it is a matching situation. But she utilizes this and she understands, hey, I've got to be careful. And so she begins to be more careful with how she uses her network. And finally, as she goes on to SoftBank, she begins to realize, you know what? I don't have to go to every single person. I can actually go to, this is what we talked about in the reading, I can actually go to brokers. And that's so vital. So she understands, hey, she starts off small, she begins to grow it, it becomes its own monster, then she pares it down, and she understands the principles of her networking. Heidi Roizen, the English major turned venture capitalist, if you can believe it. Now here's a young lady, and we'll go through her career very quickly. She starts off as a writer for a newsletter at Tandem. She goes to business school. She realizes, of course, that she needs to get into IT, so she starts her own IT company, gets embroiled in that, sells it, starts working at Apple, basically helps Apple turn it around, but gets completely burned out within about a year. And so she decides to become a mentor, and becoming a mentor changes her life to where she actually becomes a venture capitalist. Now, let's talk about a few things. Heidi used this networking capability that we're talking about in this section, whether it be the principles of how we are likable, all the different readings where we talk about give and take, who's a giver, who's a taker. So here's some things that Heidi really understood. First of all, she understood, just like Lisa Bristol, that private information flows more freely when you're around similar activities, okay? And that also goes to the principle of liking, because she made herself likable through different parties and events that she would put together. Now, what's interesting about that is she creates this bond really early. And as you read through the case itself, you see this in different perspectives. First of all, with the CEO. Obviously, she had a good relationship with him and got a recommendation letter from it. But secondly, she learns to get to know these people from IT early on when they're in their early portions of their careers. So as she's growing her own business, she's growing these relationships with people who are becoming titans of industry. And when she goes off to Apple, she utilizes this network where they were just nobodies to begin with, and she suddenly has somebody that she can talk to. And just like Adam Rifkin, she realizes that these different relationships are vital, whether they're getting something out of it or not. And so as she's working at Apple, she understands this principle. She begins to use these networking opportunities. Then she goes to her mentoring and she begins to use it, but she learns a little bit about not pushing and pulling too hard through reciprocity. She understands there's a little give and take. So she doesn't want to take too much of people's time, knowing that they're also very busy. You know, I think one of the things that's really important is, just like Corey Callahan, she got burnout, just like Corey Callahan did at Overbrook. And I think when you look at it, you realize that it was actually the burnout that was the trigger for her mentorship and learning about true networking, which is this, that there's a relationship that's built in everything we do. And it's important for us to understand that we can't just be takers, we can't just be givers, we really have to be otherish about our relationships. So she understands, just like Lillian Bauer, she's got to say no. And so she starts building her own family time, her own relationship with her time, her own relationship with her networks. And she gets to a point where she actually understands brokering. No longer does she have to know everybody in the business. She simply has to know someone who knows more people. And I think if you look at the case and the different readings, whether it be give and take or the readings about her likability or our networking capabilities, it all ties together to understand that our networks are vital. And we have to take our time and be sure that we're developing relationships that are consistent instead of based on how much time we spend with each other.